standing up against the anti-rights movements, which are pushing back progress on gender equality around the world. And you know what? It sounded like pretty impressive stuff.
No, very impressive. I thought the menstrual health session was really good too. And I love the use of technology to really empower our young people. And that app, Oki, seems amazing and seems to be very useful in safeguarding young people's privacy and how that increases confidence. But we have a couple more sessions coming up. One is called A Better Way, Transforming the HIV Response for Adolescents and Young People. The other is Making the Future Disability Inclusive, bringing stakeholders together to change the future today.
Of course. And now is your chance to catch Michelle Namankeng, an amazing youth novelist from South Africa. She is in the top 10 of those youngest authors, which is incredible, as well as more news from our 1.8 reporters.
Unite! Unite! Rise! Rise! Lead! Lead!
Dear world leaders, we are tired of the empty words and promises that were long due are now running over time. This is our future that you are dealing with. We are the tomorrow, the affected, and not going to watch you throw away and lose it. Dear world leaders, don't you hear our cries and pleas for help? We come together from countries far and wide so that all our problems can share a chance to be in the light. You have made our homes the shadow for far too long, and now it is time for us to echo our song. Dear world leaders, we are the younger generation, brave and bold. We will be there for you. We will do everything for you. We will listen to you. But that is only what we have been told. We deserve peace after a lifetime of war. After all the petitions, letters, protests, and policies, none of the solutions to our altercations are ever guaranteed. Enough is enough. We won't back down. We will soar above the crowd. Remaining silent will be a disappointment for those before us who fought loud and proud. We will no longer be shamed for the things that make us who we are. Dear world leaders, you are not helping us, don't you see? We still hunger and thirst for our basic needs, and you turn a blind eye to those who bleed. Poverty is a monster in which the earth is its home. It spreads and attacks with evident ways, and you just let it roam. We twist and turn in all the pain and torture. How many more tears have to drop before there is none of us left? We still need our closure. Dear world leaders, we are tired, not of fighting, but of this game. You keep rewriting chapters and skipping our pages. We don't deserve to experience this at our young age. We cannot sit and watch as our childhood is slowly being taken away from us, losing its grip and holding on to its last breath. But the hands of injustice and unfairness keep pushing it down, making it fall again and again. Enough of the leaders. Now I say, dear young people, I tell you now, the rain will not be here forever. The sun will come out. We will sing together, running in circles and connecting as one, just like the old days. Your voices are going to be heard. You won't remain the silhouettes that people in the lights trample on. Your story will change. Our tears will stop falling. They will stop all the mocking. We will walk down those streets without pounding hearts of fear, without the stalking. We will get that education that we have called for without piercing looks from others. We will grow. No more being shut behind doors where unspeakable things emerge. No more feeling terrified of staying with someone who makes your stomach and head throb with pain. No more keeping silence about menstrual health just because people cannot behave mature enough for their age. Dear world leaders, we won't live under the title of those people who only talk nonsense. Under the title, they do not know what they want or where they are heading, or it's only getting worse because you keep wearing a short skirt. Weather is getting out of hand with hot and cold having no limits, with wildfires and disasters making places one huge pit. We are ready to wake up. It is our time now. We will rise and shine like the break of dawn. And through all that hard work and perseverance, that will be a gift to us all. Thank you, and my name is Michelle Nkamangi.
Hi, welcome to Aki, a period tracker app for girls like you. My name is Ari. Use Aki to get to know you by tracking what's going on with your body and mood every month, and learn about periods in fun ways. Create an account and choose an Aki friend like me to accompany you. This is your monthly menstruation cycle. Each shape is a day of the month. And this number is your personal countdown. It shows how many days until your next period, or how many days left of your current period. Track your mood, period flow, body, and activities with emojis on the daily cards. See your whole month at a glance. And check out the Aki menstruation and puberty information to learn new things about your body and health. And don't forget to send me some love. Welcome, friend, to Aki. For girls, by girls, period.
Hi guys, I'm Bensko and I'm here for 1.8 News. Today we're here at the House of Lords to speak to the powerful people who make decisions about your life, your health and your well-being. And we are here to get your voices heard today.
Thank you, Lord Collins, for hosting us and for your leadership on the well-being of adolescents. PMNCH is convening the 1.8 billion Young People for Change campaign, a global youth-led effort to mobilize, increase better actions for adolescent well-being.
Young people have a real sense of kind of lack of trust with people who are making decisions for their life. What could you tell us today, and what could you tell young people out there today that's really going to reassure them that you guys are really making the right decisions for their health and their well-being and the things that really affect them in life today?
Thank you. So Save the Children has just recently released something called the Adolescent Health and Nutrition Index, and the purpose behind this piece of work is to really identify how far our country is going really to support adolescents and young people. So we've looked at health and nutrition indicators and gender indicators across 75 lower middle income countries, and also looked at what are the policy and financing provisions in these countries. So if you're a young person out there and you're keen to advocate for yourself, please join our index, go online and look at it and find out what is your government doing in your country to support you to meet your health and nutrition needs. And hopefully you can also provide feedback to us.
Unite, unite, rise, lead, lead. Young people, this is our time.
Hi everyone. welcome to the Global Forum for Adolescents. We are so excited to be here today and to be sharing the space with some amazing speakers. We've got such a good lineup for you guys. And I want to start by giving you guys a bit of insight on what the session is about. Over the past couple of years, for myself personally, I have noticed that there is an urgency for light to be shown on many different disabilities that aren't as prominent to the human eye as others. I am a young disability advocate from South Africa, and I've specifically noticed that in South Africa, there's still a specific idea of what disabilities look like and what we expect them to look like. So I will be your moderator for this session. I have been in the disability research sector for a few years. I started in my undergraduate degree, which was in a Bachelor of English, where I focused on writing about my own disability and using the creative arts in order to give people without disabilities a bit of an understanding and a bit of an experience through the creative arts as to what it feels like to live with a disability that isn't always prominent to the human eye. So over the last couple of months, I've noticed and focused on the connection between mental health struggles and physical disabilities, specifically disabilities that I refer to as invisible disabilities that aren't as evident to the human eye. For me, I think that this is a very important topic for the fact that when we are aware that somebody has a disability, we often focus on the physical struggles that they have and not the mental struggles. So for myself, I've made it a prominent thing to focus my work on the mental health struggles that people with invisible disabilities suffer with. So I would like to thank PMNCH, the Partnership for Maternal, Newborn and Child Health, for organizing the Global Forum for Adolescents. I also want to thank the agencies which have contributed to organize the session, which includes the International Disability and Development Consortium, the IDDC, Gender and Adolescents Global Evidence, GAGE, UNICEF, UN Office at the Secretary General's Envoy on Youth, OSGEY, and the Human Sciences Research Council, where I work. So the purpose of the session is to bring together people with disabilities, disability activists, and youth researchers to advocate for a more disability-inclusive youth and adolescent agenda. In the session, young people with disabilities will be in conversation with disability activists from previous generations to share challenges and propose approaches to promote the inclusion of young people with disabilities in society and ensure their meaningful engagement in decision making. So we are going to invite you guys to ask questions in the Q&A box, and they will be answered after a panel discussion. So we are going to start with a quiz, and very often there is a perception that people with disabilities represent a tiny minority of the population. From my side, I believe that this is because people still have this idea of what disabilities look like, and we don't realize that we are surrounded by people with many disabilities every single day. So we want to start our session with a short quiz. So you should be able to see a question pop up on your screen. And the question is, what is the percentage of people with disabilities in the world? You have the option of choosing 10%, 16%, or 5%. We will give you guys a few minutes to give you a vote, and then we will give you guys the correct answer. Okay, so 70% of the voters voted 16%, and that is the correct answer. So that equates approximately to 1.3 billion people globally. Of these, an estimated 180 to 120 million are youth with disabilities. This shows that people with disabilities are not a small minority, and it is key to ensure we have equitable access to all spheres of life and society on an equal basis with others. So with that being said, I'm very excited to introduce our first speaker of the session. So it is Volodymyr Cherushna, a young disability advocate from Ukraine. So his contribution is pre-recorded and you guys will be able to see it on your screen. So enjoy.
Good day. My name is Volodymyr Cherushna. I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity to be here with you and to share the challenges that people with disabilities face in Ukraine. Unfortunately, there is a war going on in my country. War is death, destruction, losses, constant stress, and superhuman efforts to survive. The war was a terrible test for people with disabilities. The main problem of the deaf is communication barriers. Many people think that if a deaf person cannot hear, he is limited in his abilities. I am deaf, and this problem has accompanied me since childhood. But like many others, I want to be successful and needed. I want to bring joy and benefit to others. I want to understand and be understood. By my own example, I want to convey to the whole world that existing barriers can and must be destroyed. Before the war in Ukraine, I and a team of like-minded people destroyed the wall of misunderstanding and alienation between society and deaf people. We implemented a project called Hear with the Heart, which was supported by UNICEF. As part of the project, we held workshops on making wooden dactyl alphabets, which were placed in public places in Kharkiv and Ukraine in order to help others understand and accept the language of deaf people, touch deaf culture, our creativity, worldview, and understand that we are just as full members of society. And today, despite the circumstances, I continue to help people because the war posed new challenges. Many Ukrainians, saving their lives, are forced to go abroad. I am no exception. Now I've found protection in Germany. I face problems of a psychological and educational nature. Barriers in communication, in education, in the search for a job. A key factor in the availability of education and employment for people with hearing loss is the availability of sign language translation. I run my blog on Instagram to help Ukrainian refugees learn German. I urge governments and businesses to pay more attention to the issue of inclusion of people with disabilities in public life. I want to create new projects and programs that will allow the joint flight of thought and imagination to be successfully implemented into concrete things that will make people's lives better. I sincerely believe our meeting is an incentive for defining, solving, and implementing new ideas, tasks, and plans.
Thank you so much to Volodymyr for sharing that. It's always wonderful when we hear the steps that people are taking, especially people with disabilities themselves. I think it's important for us to step into who we are and to step into our disabilities in order to know how to move forward. So next, we have Sarah Al-Hawidi. She will be representing Gender and Adolescents, the Global Evidence. She is a researcher for them in the program in Jordan. Her work includes undertaking participatory research with young people with disabilities from refugee and host communities across Jordan to explore what constraints and enables their agency and participation. She studies psychology at Al Aliyah Amman University in Jordan. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you.
So, Sarah,
Excellent.
the question that we would like to ask you is, how can we collect the voices of young people in the most participatory way?
Thank you again for the introduction. I will try to give an overview on the research that's called Gender and Adolescence Global Evidence. It is a 10-year study exploring gendered experiences of adolescents and young adults who are living in the Global South by finding out what works for whom, where, and why. Gage is working to help improve the lives of young people now and in the future, and to fast track the social change that is called for the SDGs. I will speak a little bit about the designing of Gage. First, it's focus. So it focuses on different capabilities like psychosocial well-being, physical health, education, and learning. I will also speak about the sample, which is very inclusive. Our sample intentionally includes the world's most vulnerable young people, such as refugees, those with disabilities, and also child-married girls. Finally, I will speak about the research. I would say it is a longitudinal study. So we keep following the same group of people for 10 years, which gives us a rare opportunity to follow up with the same people and understand how young people's life change over time. Overall, on our sample in Jordan, it has 4,000 adolescents. 250 are joining the qualitative research, and 50 of our participants are in the participatory research. And overall, in the sample in Jordan, we have 500 persons with disabilities. Next slide, please. I will speak a little bit on how our tools are inclusive and we are able to capture voices through. So the Gage survey lets young people to self-identify as having a disability by asking them about whether they have difficulty carrying out variety of life tasks, daily life tasks. Our qualitative tools also, they are especially open to letting people with disabilities to narrate their own lives. So we have two tools in the slide. One is called Our Favorite Things and the other is Body Mapping. So in these two exercises, we try to find out furthermore information from the young people, either on what they're able or not able to do, and also on different capabilities they are having in their lives. So these are only two of the tools that we use, and there is a lot more to be mentioned.
Thank you so much, Sarah. So following up from your answer, what are the key findings from your work on research with refugee youth with disabilities?
So the Gage research in Jordan is finding that because of the stigma that is surrounds disability, young people who have disabilities are often excluded, lonely, and distressed. Looking at numbers, we see that on our baseline survey, we found out that compared to adolescents who do not have a disability, those with disabilities were 71% more likely to be emotionally distressed, and also 10% less likely to have a trusted friend, and 32% more likely to have been bullied in the past year, and also 53% more likely to have a caregiver who has a PTSD.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you so much.
So, Sarah, highlighting key findings and introducing the next session, we would like to talk about an intergenerational dialogue between different disability activists of different generations. Would you like to outline the names of the panelists for us? So we've got Gopal Mitra, Global Lead on Disability and Development at UNICEF, Yassine Samuels, an advocate for invisible disability from Cape Town, Dr. Ola Abul Khabib, Manager of the United Nations Partnership on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, Khamiat Ayibola from the Women with Disabilities Self-Reliance Foundation in Nigeria. So I would like to ask the first question to Gopal. Gopal, many of our speakers today are young activists fighting for disability rights in their own communities. You are currently leading the Global Disability Unit at UNICEF, but you have been working with youth with disabilities for many years. What are the learnings from those early days that you would like to pass to this new generation of disability activists?
Thank you so much, Kirsten. It is wonderful to meet you. And thank you everyone for joining the event today. You have asked a very deep question. But before I go into it, let me say that working with young people with disabilities was one of the starting points of my career many years back. And it is an area that I remain deeply passionate about. In terms of learnings, there were so many learnings. Let me outline only two. The first learning was the sheer energy and courage that young people with disabilities bring to the table. You see, many of the issues related to inclusion of persons with disabilities, stigma, prejudice, negative attitudes are deeply entrenched in the minds of people. So to bring about that shift, it requires relentless effort, energy, and courage. And I think no one does it better than young people with disabilities. The second point is the sheer creativity and innovations that young people with disabilities have. And we got to continuously explore and come out with new ways of bringing about change. And creativity is so important. I still remember a young deaf girl with disability. She experienced sexual abuse. She complained to her family, the community, the police. They did not believe her or take her seriously. She started writing a diary on Facebook, and within no time, she had many followers, and other people joined who started sharing that experience. This process not only gave a platform, a space for the person to vent out her experience and also mobilize others, right? And today, that young person with disability speaks to decision makers, to ministers, to bring about change. Now, in terms of key messages to the next generation of young people, let me outline two key ones. First of all, it's the authenticity of the voices of young people with disabilities. Your voices are authentic. And when we take into account the diversity in terms of the intersectionalities, young people with disabilities when it intersects with gender, with age, with ethnic status, with geographical location, it's a very rich array of experience. And even when we talk about the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, it is the experiences and the richness of these experiences that will help us to bring this convention to life. Otherwise, it remains theory and technical. And it's the authentic voices that I think we need more and more to come around and to be told. And the second point, and second message rather, stems from the fact that young people with disabilities are first and foremost young people. The rallying call of the disability movement has been nothing about us without us, but I see it slowly shifting with the new call being nothing without us. You see, globally, the world faces several major challenges: climate change, the financial crisis, food crisis, emerging technologies. And I think young people with disabilities have to be at the center of these dialogues, these discussions and decisions. It's only through that we will be able to ensure that all these processes, these key major events or issues, when they're being addressed, the issue of disability remains front and center and is not lost out. Let me now take the opportunity to ask Yassine a question. Yassine, would you tell us about your experience about navigating the barriers to education and employment? And while you share, it would be great to also hear about a little bit of a reflection on the resilience that you have seen among young people with disabilities and that you have noticed within yourself. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gopal. I would be listing four as specifically stemming from in my experiences. The first is the socioeconomic the constraints in resulting in competing uh, priorities. Secondly is the geographical, inaccessibility stemming from the spatial apartheid, in South Africa. Thirdly, is the limited to no access to assistive technologies stemming once more from the economic inequalities. And fourthly is the societal stigma. In terms of resilience strengthens the perseverance, in recognizing, one's worth, despite the challenges, associated tied to one's disability. So much so, a resilience encourages, education, dialogue in driving, local change, to the benefit of those excluded, due to their challenges. So essentially, perseverance, mutual dialogue, and local change, are the uh, the the key characteristics of disability. Activism, and it stems from, my personal journey as a, as someone, with a, a speech impairment, the importance of first of perseverance in a daily in a life. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Yassine, for outlining for us so candidly and so eloquently the barriers that exist at different levels, whether it is in terms of attitudes, in terms of the physical and digital environment, in terms of service delivery, and so on. May I ask you, what, according to you, are the changes that are required within the education system and employment to make it more inclusive and accessible to everyone?
I've identified two. Firstly, to conscientize, a close-minded society by mandating a disability training for aspiring school teachers, and then and human resource managers and staff in the workspace. Secondly, the dire need for sign language interpreters. Seeing that South Africa recently recognized sign language as the 12th official language, thus speaking to its its prominence. Yeah. The battles, we face as young, disabled, in activists, stems from those who came before us. We are so keen to learn from them. You're being a a leader in the disability movement for many years. So what are your recommendations of our generation?
Thank you. Thank you so much for the question. Yeah, let me start first for thanking you all for this very important discussion and a very timely one. We know that what's happening in the world around us is very challenging, whether it's about opportunities for better future for everyone or crisis happening everywhere, climate change hitting the world. So we need to be really cautious of making sure that the voices of everybody in any community are heard. And I would like to start with personal reflection, then a professional one, on what needs to be done to ensure that the voices of youth with disabilities and young people with disabilities is not missed in all what's going on around us. I had my disability when I was 10 years old, and all my young years, I could experience what is meant by exclusion simply because of having a disability. I know of first-hand experience what does that mean and how it was felt by me, and how many opportunities I was missing at the first years of my disability because of limitations or misunderstandings or inaccessible community and lack of support systems. On the bright side, I can see that things are changing along the years. We are not in that dark place anymore. And I'm very pleased and honored to be part of this panel where young people with disabilities are leading the pathway for better even realities for youth with disabilities. However, it's not still very rosy and there is still a lot to be done. And sharing some reflections of the work we are doing at the UN Partnership on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Fund. What we do is we support countries to improve their commitments around disability inclusion and trying to promote national changes in legal frameworks, policies, and systems. And we make sure that the voice of the disability movement is heard and there is genuine engagement and participation and partnership with organizations of persons with disabilities. What we see until now is that the voice of young people with disabilities is still not heard enough within even the disability movement. And the acknowledgement of governments of the importance of that voice is still not where we would like it to see. We at our end are doing all the efforts to make that happen within the spaces that we have control of, whether it's our program cycle, the program design, the targets of the programs. But as I said, the essentials of genuine participation is still lacking in many countries. And what we see is a must to happen now is a open more doors for young people with disabilities to engage. You know, we can't just use big words like empowerment, capacity building, participation without genuine understanding what is the baseline that needs to be in place to make that happen. And what I mean is, first, access to information. Many young people are missing the knowledge of what's going on around them. Key discussions about changes in policies and systems, in their rights, in their inclusion in whatever is happening. So that's a key thing that we need to push for and change. The second one is genuine accessibility around them. We're talking about very weak infrastructure, support services like sign language, braille services, assistive technology, all what's have the evolution that's happening around us in terms of technology is not yet touching the lives of young people to enable them to effectively engage in those things. The other one for me is both the youth movement more broadly that are not with a disability and they are hearing us today. My appeal to them is you need to be also more inclusive. We need to see more voices of young people with disabilities within the broader agendas. We want to have that space more open. Of course, governments need to have that equal recognition as well. And of course, it's the responsibility of everybody, development actors, humanitarian actors, to make that happen. And for me, all this needs to be coming together because without that, we're going to miss the bigger picture of that equal space that we would like to create. And I would like just to maybe close with asking Hamidat a question, which is more about the fact that our previous speakers have talked about disability activism, access to education and employment, and inclusion in society. However, there's a topic that we haven't addressed yet in details, and that is access to sexual and reproductive health and rights of young people with disabilities. Can you share with us some perspectives and experience from your experience in Nigeria? Hamidat, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Well, free and informed access to sexual and reproductive health and rights is crucial for young people with disability. The United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability clearly emphasizes our right to make our own decisions about our sexual reproductive health, including whether we want to be sexually active, whether we want to have children, how many, and the right to access family planning services on an equal basis with others. The reality, however, is very different. In Nigeria, for example, young people with disability often face significant barriers when it comes to accessing sexual and reproductive health services and exercising their rights. Many of my peers have limited knowledge about safe sex practice, contraceptive methods, sexually transmitted infection, and reproductive rights. And this is because it's very difficult to find information that is accessible and inclusive for young people with disability. Stigma and discrimination are also critical barriers. For example, the assumption that people with disabilities should not be sexually active or should not have children. Adolescent girls and young women with disability have been systematically denied the opportunity to exercise their bodily autonomy and to make free and informed reproductive choices. This type of discrimination often leads to violence and abuse. And we have witnessed so many stories of young girls and women with disability who have been forced into using contraception, being sterilized, or having an abortion against their will. These are tragic violations of our basic human rights. The Women with Disabilities Self-Reliance Foundation, we are working to address these challenges and improve access to sexual and reproductive health and rights for young people with disability. We are working directly with them to increase their knowledge and empower them to engage in decision-making process, which are happening in their own communities and have an impact on their lives. And we are working at institutional level, advocating for the adoption and implementation of disability inclusive policies. This battle, however, requires everyone to get involved. If you are working in the area of sexual and reproductive health and rights, please, I urge you to reach out to your local organizations of persons with disability and make sure disability inclusion is meaningfully included in your work. Only then we will be on the right path to make sure no one is truly left behind. Thank you.
Thank you so much to all our panelists for all that insight into your world specifically. It's always important for us to hear what the experience of having a disability is like for people that are not from the same societies or countries as us. So thank you so much for that. We are going to open up the Q&A now, starting with the first question from Kate Pincock. She says, "Hi all, thank you for these presentations. I have a question for Sarah. What are the implications of research with people with disabilities? What does GAGE research recommend?"
Hello, everyone. So I will give 6 priority actions as implication or recommendations. So first, the awareness raising campaigns that should be directed at broader and schools and communities to tackle disability related stigma. The second thing is young people with disabilities, they have to get more opportunities for peer interactions. And also we need parenting classes for the parents of the children or the young people with disabilities that address development, the adolescent development, disability stigma, and also gender norms. And also we need to focus on the teachers. We need to have stepped up training and resourcing to help them better meet the psycho-educational needs for adolescents with disabilities. We also need to focus on social protection that should be adjusted to meet the added cost of disability. And last recommendation, I would mention that there is a need for care coordination and also referrals to ensure that the medical, psychosocial, and financial needs for these adolescents are met in a timely way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. So moving on to our next question, which is open to all of our panelists. That's a really important question. How would you recommend policymakers to make infrastructure more disability inclusive, especially in countries where that is currently virtually non-existent? You guys can go ahead when you would like to answer. I would actually, I'll kick us off. I think that for myself and my experience, specifically thinking about my disability, which is left hemiplegia, scoliosis, and epilepsy, I think there needs to be research done in terms of how and what we need as individuals with disabilities that affect certain parts of our bodies. What can be done to make things easier for us? What can make it more accessible? I think I would actually like to really hear from Yassine what your answer is to this question. I'll repeat it once more. How would you recommend policymakers to make infrastructure more disability inclusive, especially in countries where that is currently virtually non-existent?
Sure. Wow. So I'm speaking of my disability. I recently tried a speech over a div. I said and unfortunately, did not actually, it's me, but stemming from there, I feel like the importance, and the affordability of those assistive devices is key. And secondly, I would stress the importance, of a sign language interpreters, because that is, so I'm seen as, a form of, assistance in that regard. Yeah.
Thank you, Yassine.
Thank you.
Ola, I see you have your hand up. You may go ahead.
Yes, just to complement what Yassine mentioned, the support services are very crucial. As I mentioned, the governments need to make sure that even when they open spaces for young people with disabilities to engage in discussions, this infrastructure support system needs to be in place. Sign language interpreters, physical infrastructure accessibility, public transport to be accessible, because these are limitations that are sort of hidden, because there's an assumption once we invite, if we know where they are, how to invite them, that we're really actually creating the right environment for them to understand what's going on and engage around it. The other key thing for me is the crucial discussions happening on daily basis at government level around the future of young people with disabilities, education policies, employment policies, health system. There has to be that reassurance that they are around the table, that they're part of those discussions, and that their voice is also heard and considered in whatever is reformed, drafted as new policies, and considered for investments and change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ola, for that insight. Moving on to another question we got from Tubichle Malaza. And the question is, what is the baseline for inclusivity and empowerment? I will give our panelists a chance to answer before I go ahead. Okay, let me kick us off. So what is the baseline for inclusivity and empowerment? What a big and important question. I think for me, the baseline for this is really just seeing people with disabilities, giving them a chance to actually be seen for not only their disabilities, but for who they are and how they are constantly adapting and changing in order to survive. So I think for me, that is what I would say is the baseline for inclusivity and empowerment, really being able to open our eyes to the people around us and the different disabilities that exist. Would any of our panelists like to go ahead and tackle this question?
I'm sure.
Go ahead, Yassi.
Okay, sure. I would say changing the narrative by redefining a disability in itself. So someone like myself is seen as normal. So someone would would like no, not time seeing me as experiencing challenges. So I think redefining what disability is.
Thank you so much, Yassine. I think we'll end off with one last question. So we have another question from Tubuhlile Malaza. How can an adolescent change this narrative for the benefit of all? And he also thanks us for providing this platform. I think that's a beautiful question to end us off on the Q&A session. So I'll say it once more. How can an adolescent change this narrative for the benefit of all? I think I would say claiming it. We need to claim the narrative in order to change it. We need to mold it ourselves, and we can only do this once we claim it. Anybody else like to go ahead? Okay, then with that being said, we will move on to the closing. I would like to thank all of our panelists for the engagement in the Q&A and for everybody who shared their questions. I would like to share a piece of creative work with everybody. This is a poem that I wrote that is based on and prompted by my own disability. It's called Little Pains. It's quite pathetic, really, the fact that I'm in pain for the most part. But still, I only concentrate on the little pains. My nail broke in half tonight. I decided to paint onto my finger skin. It burnt, of course, but well worth it. The burn was pretty harsh and ladylike. My other pain is dressed as a boy, stubborn and angry. Other days, like today, it is my bowel movements that grab my attention. I haven't shat in 3 days. This makes my mother worry, and I'm sure my skin is tearing from the inside. My pain has found its way all around my body. The little pains. I take them on dates. They're so polite. I take them on seconds. So I want to thank everybody. I want to thank you for the engagement. I want to thank you, the panelists, for sharing your opinions, for sharing your stories. It's not always easy, and we acknowledge that. I would like to share a call to action as I end us off. So we have heard from wonderful speakers today who are actively engaged in the disability sector across many countries. But if we are serious about promoting disability inclusion in society and to ensure no one is left behind, then everyone needs to get involved. Each and every one of us have a role to play. Maybe you are a youth activist, or perhaps you campaign for access to education or access to employment. Or maybe you are working to contrast the climate emergency or to promote access to sexual and reproductive health and rights. No matter what your specific area of focus and expertise is, I urge you to ask yourself the following question. How can I promote disability inclusion as part of the work I am doing? And how can I make sure young people with disabilities, and particularly young women and girls with disabilities, are meaningfully engaged in what I do? Ask yourselves these questions. Reach out to your local disability organizations. Identify peers with disabilities, listen to them, and amplify their voice. Together, we can make sure that our future is truly disability inclusive. I want to thank PMNCH for organizing the Global Forum. I want to thank the organizers of the disability session, the International Disability and Development Consortium, Gender and Adolescents Global Evidence, UNICEF, UN Office of the Secretary General's Envoy on Youth, and thank you to all the speakers, and particularly our young disability activists and panelists. You guys are doing amazing work, and these are things that are needed, and this is only the beginning. Thank you to the audience for participating and engaging, and thank you everyone. Thank you for our organizers, thank you to our tech team, thank you for our translators. It's been amazing, guys. Thank you so much.